Good Shabbos, everyone. A man named Sam goes to a rabbi and complains about all the problems he has in his life. His wife, his children, his work, and everything else he can think of. Every week he goes to the rabbi, and the list gets longer and longer. And every week, the rabbi always listens quietly and doesn't say a word. Until one week, the rabbi finally says, "Sam, why don't you convert?" Sam, shocked that the rabbi would suggest something so scandalous, asks, "How would that solve my problems?" The rabbi answers, "It won't, but it will solve mine." No matter what we do, sometimes listening is not easy. From an early age, we're taught how to speak. Walk by any of our preschool rooms, and you'll hear teachers encouraging our boys and girls to recite the ABCs, to pronounce new words. Speaking is what we do nearly every waking moment of our lives. But what about listening? Are we ever taught how to listen? It used to be easier for me when I was younger. You could talk to me for hours and I could attend to every word. And perhaps when we're all younger, we listen more. We're less distracted. We're more attentive. But as we grow older and we become more distracted, especially in this day and age, it becomes more difficult to simply listen. And maybe that's why our rabbis long ago, using the beautiful words found in our Torah portion today, gave us the central prayer of our tradition, the Shema. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Listen, O Israel, the Lord is God, the Lord is one. There are reasons why we as Jews have been commanded for centuries to recite this prayer, not just once a day, but twice a day, in the morning and in the evening. Listen, O Israel, is what we are saying because perhaps the rabbis knew in their wisdom that we needed the daily reminder, the twice daily reminder, to listen. And the rabbis go on. In fact, the rules for the daily recitation of the Shema are more fascinating and unique than any other Jewish prayer. The rules are set up specifically to give us and remind us to listen to others. That's why we have the tradition of covering our eyes when we recite the Shema. And while doing so, we have the custom and services of having the cantor or the bar mitzvah student to recite the first verse out loud so that we can really hear the voice of someone else without being distracted, that we can genuinely listen to another person. This morning, from this idea, I want to share with you two important lessons, if you will, that I think are more important than ever before. Number one, how often in our loud and noisy world do we have the opportunity to pay attention to the words of others? How often, instead, are we trying to multitask between emails, text messages, cell phones, and listening to our loved ones at the same time? I do it too often as well. We've all seen that TV skit in which the husband is propped up in his chair reading the newspaper. His wife enters the room and asks him if she looks overweight in her brand new dress. Of course, the husband is not really listening to what she has to say. He simply responds, "Yes." Have we not all done something similar? How often in our loud and noisy world do we have the opportunity to really pay attention to the words of others, especially our loved ones? Or are we too concerned about what we have to say, not even paying attention to others? The story is told of a man who takes out a woman for the first time. Over their first dinner together, the man speaks for over 2 hours about himself. Finally, he realizes he's spoken for too long. So he tells his date to talk, asking her, "So what do you think about me?" No, the tradition tells us. Listen to others for our own good and the good of our loved ones. And what I have learned is that when I really listen to others, as a husband, as a father, as a friend, as a rabbi, I let them safely share their views and feelings with me. I help them feel that natural need we all have as human beings to be heard and understood by others. In short, I become a better friend, a better spouse, a better parent, a better rabbi. When we pray on a beautiful Shabbat like this, we hope that God is listening to us. So should we not afford the same opportunity to others? The next time you have a conversation with someone, ask yourself, are you really listening, tuned in to what they are saying? I'll never forget in rabbinical school, we had many seminars about how to give sermons, about how to speak. But perhaps the most important seminar I ever had in rabbinical school was with an expert they brought in who was considered a listening expert. And he spent several weeks with us teaching us as rabbinical students how to listen. And I was reminded then, and I've tried to do so ever since. When I listen to others, am I making eye contact with that person? Am I demonstrating to them that they're worth my attention? Am I giving verbal acknowledgments? I understand. Thank you. And when I say I understand, have I really listened so I can comprehend what they've told me? Because when I'm able to be attentive to someone else's words, I build a real connection. I make them feel validated. And when we all listen, we give more support and comfort than almost anything we can say. And number two, a second lesson based on the idea of the Shema that I believe is also extremely important, especially today. Because my friends, open up any newspaper, turn on the TV, check your social media feed, and no matter where you turn, our country seems more divided than any of us can ever remember. Too often, we refuse to even listen to the possibility that the other side has a position worth considering. Today in America, we read different newspapers, we surf different websites, we watch different newscasts, and depending on who's presenting the news to us, the news is extremely different. And with social media outlets providing us with our personalized individual news feeds, we don't even come in contact with positions different from our own. Failing to listen to the potential value in another's argument isn't only counterproductive, it's also against one of the core values of our Jewish tradition. Yes, Jews have been arguing with each other for centuries. We've got dispute down to a science. And throughout our long history, our rabbis and scholars have always been good at disagreeing. But leading Jewish thinkers have always viewed debate not as a cause for discord, but instead as an important tool for mutual discovery and development. The sages viewed arguments not as a means to divide, instead as a way to understand each other and grow closer. The classic Jewish example are the houses of Hillel and Shammai. Thousands of years ago, they were the two major houses of learning. And Hillel and Shammai, they were in constant disagreement over almost anything, from details of religious law, from how we welcome converts, to how we should light Hanukkah candles, to other philosophical debates about how to perpetuate Judaism. The arguments were powerful, forceful, they were intense. Hillel and Shammai were the liberals and conservatives of the day. They were the Democrats and the Republicans. But the difference is that Hillel and Shammai did not care about their own status, about their own personal ambitions, about their own honor. They were not concerned with the quest for authority, power, and a love of victory for its own sake. They didn't care even if the other side won. Their work was about God. Their work was about Jewish values. Their work was about the continued survival of our people. They only cared if some type of resolution could be found that would improve lives and promote Jewish continuity. As the rabbis say, their arguments were truly l'shem shamayim. They argued only for the sake of heaven. While they may have disagreed in the halls of the Beit Midrash, the house of study, they also respected each other's integrity, scholarship, and wisdom. They were able to accept the legitimacy of the opposing position even when they completely disagreed with it, because they actually heard the other side. And they could not only speak about mutual respect and peace, they lived out these ideals. The houses had so much mutual admiration for each other, they conducted business with each other, socialized together, and even allowed the offspring of their scholars to interact, date, and marry each other. In fact, the rabbis tell us that often we today side with the house of Hillel, because the house of Hillel, it's told, before they gave their own opinions, always validated the opinions of Shammai. We can learn a lot today from Shammai and Hillel. But instead, in this day and age, we love to engage in name-calling. We love to do labeling and character assassination. Those actions may garner likes and shares online, but bring us nowhere to finding solutions to help the country that we love. Because the new American political playbook, unfortunately, has become shock and awe, stirring up the crowds and leaving everyone angry. And in the process, we retreat to our respective corners, our social media feeds and news channels, and never engage in the type of debate that promotes mutual understanding and respect, the type of debate that actually finds solutions that can help all of us. And in the process, we are losing sight of our shared values and common goals. Today, how often do we assume that the people who disagree with us must have less than pure motives? Our tradition calls out to us, don't do that. It says listening begins with the assumption the other is worth listening to, and that it is possible by assuming they are not merely purely malign and base. Dan l'chaf zchut, the rabbis tell us, try to give someone the benefit of the doubt before you scream. If you do, they might listen to you too. Shema Yisrael. Listen, O Israel. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.